Today, the dorks are joined by Chris Hronek. He's fresh off of Stratus Innovate and willing to share all of the doings that happened there, along with some big announcements. So sit back and relax. This is going to be a great show.
And we're live. That's right. We got episode 70. It's the Stratus Innovate recap show. We did a pre-show. We're doing a recap show. I think we're getting into the construction technology ESPN. We're doing recap shows, pre-cap shows. At some point, I think Trent's going to go out on his own and do his own Stephen A. Smith in the morning and just yell at people for about 2 hours and get crazy, because that's where we're at right now.
It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea, is it? Right? You're like, after certain conferences, you're like, I could use 2 hours to yell at all of you. And then there's other ones where I could, praise you and hope. So we'll see. We'll get to Chris in just a second. Before we do, I'm on that train still of training train. So, but I'm having a Celsius because, I wasn't amped up enough. Actually, I was in Chicago. I was in your town all week, Travis. And we'll have a little discussion about the heat there in a minute and the sweatiness. But so I needed this because that hurt. And yeah, that's it. So I'm with the Celsius. So I'm going to jump right to you, Travis. We were like within spheres of each other, but I didn't actually bump into you. So what you got today? What you doing?
Yeah, we were like two ships passing in the night. Yeah, so I went out back to the Freeport Brewery, got the Hella Good. It's a Hella's Lager. It's a fantastic one of those darker caramel like beers. Not a lot of hops. Sorry, Trent. What you got over there?
I feel like they missed their calling though on the Hella Good. It should have been like a Gwen Stefani, no doubt, art on the can, right?
Yeah. There might have been some copyright things there.
Good point. No, just Coke Zero for me. Jeff and I are still in the training regimen here, so I've got a little over another month before I get to partake in any more booze. So I'll be the boring one. But John, I'm sure you can make up for it.
Actually, this is the first time I think for a very long time I got to work after this, so I have a bunch of stuff I have to do. So I'm doing some espresso. So I got a double shot, a Happy Mug espresso, and I will be drinking that and zero protein water with a whole 10 grams of protein.
Wow.
So I have to be up for a lot more hours before I get my stuff done.
Well, Chris, at least Travis showed up because Chris has been waiting.
I don't want to be drinking alone.
No, Chris, you clearly overshot today. Yeah. What are you drinking, man?
Chris, this is an intervention. By the way.
When I got invited to the show, I was super excited to break because I know you guys talk about bourbon quite frequently. My Weller 12 is my favorite bourbon, and I got a bit of this bottle left, so I'm enjoying that tonight on a Friday night. And I don't know if there's a health kick. I don't think we do that in Wisconsin. Like there's always
it's just less cheese. It's like
less cheese.
I feel like that would be like the cheese only diet, right? It would be like whiskey and cheese, and just see what happens.
Right. I'm insinuating cheese is bad. I'd actually probably get attacked for that statement.
Probably, yeah. I think a health kick might just be light beer. I mean, but then you're basically drinking some water anyway, so.
Yeah. So fresh off of Innovate, Chris, what Stratus Innovate? Little bit of a, pretty cool conference. We're big conference fans here. So, we're going to force you into a little bit of a recap for us, but we're going to go down whatever road we want to go down. That's the way we go. Kind of all of these have an overarching theme right before you get there, but there's a feel more or less. So I just came off of AGCIT. Travis, I know you did Hanson Wade's Advancing Construction Tech. Mm-hmm. There's always a vibe. So Chris, what was the vibe going into this one when you got there? What was that opening vibe like? And compared to the lead up?
Yeah. I think it was good. I think the kick of not having in-person stuff is kind of over. Now we're kind of getting back into the in-person stuff. So it wasn't last year where it was like first time getting to see everybody again. But from my perspective going, 2 years ago when they had the first one, I was a potential customer, and now I'm we signed up for Stratus right after that. And now, so kind of being in between. So the vibe for me personally was just like different from like who's using this, what's going on, to who can I help explain what my journey has been like. Because I think for me personally, like the reason I listen to you guys, the reason I listen to Darren and follow those guys or anybody is like, I've always appreciated the openness and the sharing that our construction technology, new type piece of construction has been open, right? Like, I feel like no one's like a closed door. We're not doing anything super industry secret. We all have the same struggles. So like, for me, I guess getting into the vibe was just kind of seeing who's going to show up and basically rekindle those conversations.
Anyone's particular standout? Was there a problem you went there looking for too? Because I mean, software does a great job, right, of helping us out, but we're always looking for somebody to help us out with a problem. Was there one in mind you went there with this year that you found some other folks interested in? Anything like that?
I think it was interesting to me, like from the new people, like searching, and then just in general, like we're fabrication database users, right? Like from the minute that we switched it, we've kind of built our own database. I managed it in the beginning because I'm a sheet metal guy, and that was just a natural fit for me. And I think interesting not knowing, like, okay, I know you're a user, you're a potential user, but like actually having more fabrication database conversations that I've historically had, because I think if you're a Cisco user next to a completely custom, next to I've never used fab parts, I only use RFAs, like that probably changes how you use it and how the implementation goes. Because I think that a lot of the questions I was receiving was like, how did this go for you, or how did this not go for you? And a lot of the good that the struggles I didn't get that a lot of others had was it came down to the fabrication database and how well maintained it is.
Yeah, I think people underestimate, like, because it was something. I think it's weird that there was a while where I thought RFA was like taking over, where it was building up and more people were using it, and then all of a sudden you saw it just kind of fall off again as people said, wait a second, you can estimate and you can do all of these other things in the ITM database. And now I'm hoping, it was lovely that Autodesk was at that event. I'm hoping that a lot of you people that were, core to ITM are really going to push that back in, because I think its framework is better than a lot of the mom and pop shop making their own RFAs. I think Siskiyou has a good argument that they can do, the same things with RFAs, but having ITM's a big deal. If you get that database right, you have a lot of products that you can get into. I had a question for you. I got to go to last year. This year was just a scheduling nightmare for me, as it didn't work out real well. Last year, I had to say, of all the conferences I went to, that was the conference that had the best fabricators in terms of U.S. fabricators for piping and plumbing. Was it the same this year? Was it pretty much the top, the top tier fabricators, or did we get more outside people this time?
I think so. I guess high level, yes. Like the guys that I'm looking to, the people I'm following on LinkedIn or whatever, and seeing what they're doing, kind of more of the cutting edge or the bleeding edge guys, like those guys are there. And there was a handful of brand new and kind of outside or just wondering what it's about. So I think it's a really good mix of both union contractors, non-union contractors. Maybe I would say 2 years ago, maybe a little heavier on the union bigger guys. And maybe this time now there's more. And I think they're starting to do some, like, re-kick the electrical side back up. I'm strictly mechanical, so that's a different language to me, but it sounds like there's enough of those guys around doing their thing too.
Well, that was one of the announcements that kind of came out during this conference, right? They brought Matt Tate back, and Matt's very heavily in the electrical side. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do when they kind of can really encompass the full MEP workflows. I was gonna ask you quick before. I mean, you introduced yourself a little bit, but could you give a little bit more of your background? You've got one of the more interesting journeys, I think, through Tweet Garrett to get to where you are.
Yeah. obviously I'm a sheet metal worker. I think I mentioned that, but I started in the trades right out of high school. I worked actually residential work before then, but then I've always liked techie stuff. So one way or another, I kind of got into our input in our shop, and I was like our shop inputter using Vulcan at the time. And that was right around the same time we decided to switch to Autodesk Fabrication, which then naturally I just became our fabrication database our database manager, because that a lot, I know SMACNA, I know the SMACNA construction standards. So I started building our specs that way, got into some purchasing, eventually moved up into the office doing BDC work. And then I think the boom of what all of you guys have kind of become and done over the years as more tech has been driven and pushed into the construction trade has allowed me to like kind of form my own department, which is our construction technology department. So I've kind of done it all, but I've only done it all for like one contractor. So like
I think that's kind of unique though. You have a department. Yeah. How many are kind of part of that whole group?
One direct report, because it's new. I have approval for more if I get the time to just get out an application for more, but a lot of others that are just like tied to I think the coolest thing for me from construction tech and what this role has become is the fact that I can reach across everybody, right? Like I think coming up through the trade in my path, like it was always the shop messed everything up when I was in the field. And then when I was in the field, the office messed everything up. When I was in the office, the owners or the engineers messed everything up, right? And a lot of times we're doing tasks through my career. Like there was things I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, is anybody talking upstream? Like, this doesn't make sense. I feel like now I have the autonomy to like talk to the estimators, talk to the project managers, talk to the field. Like in a weird way, I have that ability now to kind of hone it all in. And why are you guys doing this? This actually helps over here. And this is why we're doing this. And I think it sells. I hope the fact that I have like boots on the ground experience also helps me talk to those guys. I'm not just an office guy all the time. My hands are still pretty soft nowadays, but yeah, it's been good. And that's kind of been my path, like sheet metal, but always enjoyed all the next tech, and super excited to be able to use my trade background to make things better with technology, make it easier.
Right. So within that department, I guess, but not staying completely away from the conference, but you just talked about your path and that you have a department. So talk a little bit about what your past and current initiatives are in that department. So, and you can talk about, obviously Stratus is one of the big pieces of it, but, and fabrication database, that kind of stuff. But what are some of the other initiatives, and maybe even what are some of the things that you would like your team to focus on?
I think it's ever expanding. And as I get more resources, as I'm get better at delegating those resources, right? Like I'm me naturally. And if you guys, those of you that I've talked to, like, right, like I need to understand, sometimes I care too much. It's got to be 110% done before it's ready for rollout. And that isn't always how you continue to get things moving. But at the same time, I guess initiatives, yes, fabrication database, we use EST. So that's constant new ITMs, updating pricing. And I think all of it in a roundabout way, like if my team was big enough, like I feel like that, because of that reaching out and talking to everybody, like I feel like that all fits under that umbrella. Pretty much everything tech related, building our own add-ins into Revit and utilizing those tools, or in my case, also managing our Autodesk license and all the license to all the projects that goes to. But project management software, like that's not really on the design side, but it all ties together now. If we start running full throttle with build, like that, the whole Autodesk ecosystem fits under the umbrella of the stuff that I managed to start with. So I would say I'm open to taking on as much as I can support. Well, right now, Stratus, we're obviously pushing a lot. If we get into it later, like I presented on field orders, we're doing a lot with field orders right now. That's been between field orders, Stratus, and then MRP software at our shop, because it's all ties to the data that I'm collecting. It's got the ability to grow quite a bit bigger than it currently is, and I'm definitely busy as it is.
You're also moving pretty fast. Like if you were just a beginner Stratus user at the last conference, and then it's been over a year, right? It's been closer to,
I think it's 2 years.
Oh, it's been 2 years. That's still actually relatively fast with the rest of the stuff that you're doing to get that done. I know I was kind of watching over your shoulders for some of the other implementations for the field orders, and that you guys really do have it. You guys kind of feel like Doug Smith in DSI, and in that idea of we're going to be our own support. We're going to do a lot of this ourselves. We're going to really test this out before we roll it out to other people. So do you think that when you went to Innovate and you were talking to the other contractors that were struggling, do you think that's what they're struggling with, or what did you see that you would sort of tell other contractors trying to have better technology adoption?
I think through personal experience, spend as much time truly on the implementation as you do on vetting out the solution, or even farther back than that, like understand the problem that you're trying to solve, right? Like don't just throw tech at a problem and say it's going to fix it. I know historically we've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort, and even 2 years ago when I was a potential customer, like talking to MT Suite, talking to Manufacton, like just really understanding what we were looking for a product, not just taking the first shiny sales call on it, but then also having that ownership of seeing it through. And speaking to the speed of it, I think, at least from my experience, like having that constant, it doesn't need to be one person pushing it, but in the beginning it kind of does, right? You need that. And now we're at the stage, like I'm super pumped. Like I'm hearing project managers talking about it without reaching out to me first. Like, hey, look, we can do this. Hey, we can. And the field guys, like, I was called for field orders. We're just starting to roll out the sheet metal side of it, and I had two sheet metal foremen on a call, Teams call, because they're both in different states right now working. But one guy happened to be the first guy to use Stratus. In hindsight, he had gotten a deliverable from the shop that he was never meant to see. It was supposed to be a digital deliverable that the shop used on a screen. They screenshot it and printed it and sent it to him. So like from day one, he got a bad taste in his mouth. He's like, this is stupid. It's a giant bubble. All I can see is 3 numbers. I can't see the ductwork on it. So I could tell, like, when we got on that call about this is the next thing, he's like, okay, here's the next flavor of the month. And before I could speak up and say how things have changed in the last 12 months, the other foreman who's been using it today and has a more current view of how it's working today, he started selling it. And I was like, it was just like a light bulb moment. Like I stood back and I'm like, hey, I'm not like the salesman anymore. Like it's proving itself. So I think that's been instrumental, but also just being ready to keep moving, right? You hit a road bump. It's everybody's teams, fully understanding the picture. I think I tried really hard all along, and I still do sell upstream and downstream what it is that I'm doing. Like a lot of times people are just, I want to see my task. And I've made it a point to show what's happening upstream, what's happening downstream, whether they want to hear it or not. I think it helps you interpret and understand why you're doing it now, because it's not 100% just about you. It's the reason we're using this product, right? Like, even back to fabrication again, me as a sheet metal inputter, like I think Vulcan was a better product than CAM. But the whole fabrication database as a whole and everything VDC got out of it, like, okay, I'll make the switch.
Yeah, that's important.
Do you ever try Practicad, Chris?
Yeah, a little bit.
That's probably the best CAM program. I mean, I don't recommend it because it doesn't work with anything else. But like, it's a really good CAM program.
Yeah.
There's a lot of spot solutions that can solve one person's problem really, really, really well, right? But what does it do for the entire organization? I mean, there is a really important thing there. I like that. I like that. Spend more time on the implementation. Really. Not the dump and run thing, right? Where you found the shiny object and you're not gonna see it through. You kind of leave it.
I mean, I can only speak for those that I've talked to and those that have done it, and I know what we've done historically or what I've done, and I think that happens a lot more than any of us want to admit. right? Like even likewise,
Oh, yeah.
I think Travis, I
Yeah.
heard you say like swallowing the guilt, like this was the wrong choice, move on, but then sell that wrong choice, be okay with it. You did it. I mean,
Yeah, you gotta
the
own
amount
it.
of fabrication users that don't use S that own S license to me is mind-boggling.
It's a lot.
It is
It's
a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
And it's just because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's yeah. They have a lead estimator that can probably take off faster with some other program, meaning he can probably draw his lines faster and he can finish his day quicker. But the organization suffers because they're losing out on all of the other data, the database stuff that the rest of the teams are. Yeah. I mean,
For sure.
it's mind boggling. It really is. I mean,
And
they
it's
need
not
someone
an
like
easy,
you.
I mean, it's changed as with all this stuff. It's all changed. So it's not, none of it's an easy lift, but I think, I don't know, at least that's been my approach. Whether that answers the original question or not, I don't know, but
there are a lot of surprises in the fabrication database. You're going through it. You're like, everything's working great. Wait, I can't draw like, angle iron doesn't work anymore. Or, this doesn't work anymore. There's always those little bumps. So at the conference, what was sort of some of the best sort of new ideas, new understandings that you gleaned from either the conference itself or from other people there? You know what I mean?
yeah. I think it depends on the exact topic. There was a lot of, starting with the shop tour. We did a shop tour of Murphy's shop. It was awesome. I appreciate getting to see, like, especially now, things that I've rolled out, like thinking about it. I went out to McCusker Gill when they did a McCusker Gill shop tour. And at that point, like, I was more implementing. Now I've implemented. So it was a different take for me as a customer. Okay, let's see what they've done differently. And some things are like, yeah, I think I did that better. And some things are like, oh, that's cooler. And I love that we can share and bounce back and forth. So I think I got a lot out of that, talking to those guys, just figuring out their struggles. And I think that would also go for any platform, just having that conversation back and forth. We haven't done a lot we use point layout, and we have different tools and different techniques. Hangers, I think, are a low-hanging fruit for Stratus from a prefabbing hanger standpoint. And that's one. We've done some things that are way farther ahead, like weld tracking, but we haven't done prefabbing hangers. So I think it was the DSI guys, Doug and Jason, did one on point exports that I enjoyed.
One of the things I like about like a conference like Stratus too is it's almost entirely contractor led. We've all been to some of those conferences where good, bad, or ugly, I guess there's just not a lot of real usage, and I'll give Chris giant kudos because he jumped in and helped me out as my role changed and took over a presentation on field orders, and he did a fantastic job. I kind of told him that I would be his support person up there and just let him run with it, and I think that this you can elaborate on the way how your session went, but one of the best things is we had a lot of interaction because it's not just a software vendor up there showing you the shiny object. It's somebody that's actually using it.
Yeah, I would say if I was going to just start listing off, go back through my review, and we're recapping this, right? Like the best sessions were all sessions that were user delivered from my point of view. And I think likewise, thank you, Travis, for being up there with me, because I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous about it. Like I was, since it was my first. I've done a few like advancing prefab and different things virtually, but that was my first in-person one. And it was early in the morning on Friday. I thought in a way I had an extra hour because we were in Denver, but I'm like, when I really started thinking about it, like slightly freaking out. I'm not worried because I know the topic, right? Like I'm 100% like I'm speaking from the truth. I'm like, I hope that people understand if I don't talk clearly that I am telling the truth from my point of view. That's what I appreciate when I'm listening to somebody speak, just knowing that it's real. But yeah, like the amount of people that were in there at 8:00 or 9, whatever, 8:00 in the morning I think the room was full and there was a lot of interaction. So I appreciated the people that spoke up and asked questions, and I hope they got good.
Yeah, I think they do, and it wasn't just asking questions. I think that's this is something that a lot of us like from our MEP Innovations conference and some of the other conferences. It was legitimate sharing. It was ask Chris a question and listen to Chris's answer and say, okay, well, I went about it this way, or I've been trying to solve it this way. It was very open, very sharing, and like you said earlier, it's like there's union and non-union up there, and nobody seemed to care. Like we're all just trying to get better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was very. I speculated it's similar to the MEP conference in the fact that it's just relevant. It's just the people that are in the room are engaged because the discussion is relevant to the audience. I think it's targeted very well. When you go to some of the larger, more diverse conferences like an AU or even a Handsome Wade or something like that, I think you get that.
Yeah, they have to play to a broader crowd.
So and it's kind of like, my product's awesome or my product's awesome or design build, DFMA, like that kind of stuff, but it's all very generalized. But like here, it's not really like, well, Stratus is awesome. It's like, well, this is why, like, and you're talking about real use cases of why you like the product. It's not just, I guess they're not really trying to sell it at the conference.
I think a lot of it too. Yeah, they will. They will definitely. They definitely will. There's a credit card machine right in front of Todd as you're walking out.
Oh, come on.
But I think that a lot of those things, and this is just a general statement. The ones that I like the best are, we have this problem in the industry. We're going to describe the problem a little bit, and then, by the way, I use Stratus, I use Procore, I use Revit,
and this is how.
This is how,
and then elaborate more. I think that's how you get the discussion. You get people thinking like or like, I didn't think of it that way. That's a good point. Or, hey, actually, I think I might do it better than you. You want to look? Or I don't know. Hey, either way, it's.
I think the relevance is a key point. I think you're spot on there. Like, in the sense of like, yeah, I love the MMC innovation as well. Or now if it's everybody together, I don't know what we're calling it, but the innovation show.
Yeah. MEP innovation.
MEP innovation. Yeah.
There we go. Right. Like I think the relevance is the biggest thing. This is obviously a smaller audience in the sake of like everyone's talking about one product, not multiple trades talking about different products. Like I think there's a lot to be learned by all of us when we're single focused on a product. So I think that if you're there, you're interested or you're using it. I think it made it all relevant. I think a few episodes back when you guys talked to Sean about the MEP innovation, and he had talked about early on when it was a smaller group, like I remember him saying something about like they were talking about something in a different part of the world and it didn't affect the person listening. And I think that this had everybody in the same room talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's an evolution of the industry too. In the beginning, I was just at the AGCIT forum all week, and Jay Schneider was giving kind of a recap of the trajectory, and we used to need to go get people, even if they weren't in our industry, to like get people hyped, because it just was like it wasn't. And this is the maturity of the connection of like, turn it over to the people who are doing it. And this is where I kind of wish I haven't been in the experience that you're having. I guess with Bluebeam, I was with the Bluebeam conference. Procore and Autodesk don't really hit that for me when it comes to their conference, because it's pretty big. But this is a smaller conference with all people focused around one product, but coming at it from different angles. It'd be interesting to see how you get something as sheet metal from, say, an electrical, just because of the way they're using it and the way they think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's such a different angle, man. And that's what we need too, right? You do. You like your story of you didn't have to sell it anymore. like the industry shouldn't have to sell it anymore. It should actually be the practitioner selling it to one another, and kind of like, and this is not aimed at Stratus, but every software does. It's like, well, that's kind of bullshit. That doesn't actually work. Like, this works, and this is what we use it for. So that kind of reality is needed. You hear that more off stage at some of the other big ones that I just mentioned, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
The distance from the work, man, are the people there so far away from the work that they don't know how to actually talk about the means and methods of construction has always been like, you go to the fab convention, and that's a great one, along similar lines, where the distance of the people from the actual work is just like we're not just talking about like how to weld. We're talking about how to weld, when the block's in the way or when it's in the air. Like there's a nuance there that's not in the conversations when you're with people that aren't doing the work anymore, or haven't done it since 3 decades ago. And I love fabrication for that. I love Innovate for that. The Stratus was perfect because they're sending a lot of people that were hands-on with the work to Stratus to learn, and it just different conversation, more honest. I think a lot more valuable. There was one that they did back when TSI was there, where they broke out a session on 3D scanning that had just started. And there was like maybe 10 people in the room because there was 10 people that owned 3D scanners. It was like the best conversation ever. It's probably still relevant today, but everybody there had just spent their 3 months learning how to use this damn tool and stubbing their toe on everything. And so it was a great conversation. Did you have any conversations that stuck out, Chris, from there, where you just were like, it was worth it just to have this conversation?
Putting me on a spot to think about exactly one. I think I'm gonna have to think about it a bit. One like over the wall, like this was the key conversation. I think there was a lot of good, just high level conversations in general. I think there was a lot of Autodesk people there. I think I always appreciate any conversation I can have with Andy Robbins, because he's the guy, right? Like it's cool to get.
Yep.
I mean, I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, like just worshiping everything that the guy said, and now I'm like, I get to have a conversation with this guy. Like, this is awesome. So
Andy's cool, right? Andy's
right?
cool.
Yeah.
He also has a bag of magic tricks. I mean, when I was working building field orders, I was like, can we do this? And he's like, well, is it like next week on Friday, or is it like Monday? Like, do I have the weekend? It was never can I do it? It was always like, how long do I have? It was like, do you want this tomorrow? I'm like, I thought that was going to be magic, but apparently you can just do these things.
Well, yeah. I'm glad you brought up Autodesk too, because I think that was one of the things I was going to start leading into. Like, when you start getting some of this critical mass at conferences like this, a lot of us, not to throw Autodesk under the bus, but they have some products that we really want to use that seem to be getting not as much attention as they want. And I think when you, like I said, when you start getting some of this critical mass, I don't remember what Pikey said they had calculated, but it was nearly $100 billion worth of annual revenue represented in the room. It's nice to start to get that notice and to have those conversations with people, to be like, listen, we're all pulling on the same rope. Like, we just need a little extra help here in these areas.
Yeah, I would say if there was one big takeaway, it was kind of those conversations. A bunch of us like-minded, similar boat users kind of joining together and saying, hey, we want some more support. We want more. We want it faster. We want to know what your game plan is.
Yeah, and share that out a little bit, because there are other people that are, to Autodesk credit, they built kind of that platform type of environment. So other people are going out and trying to address some of those same issues. So why don't we all have an open conversation about what we're thanks, Jeff, what we're trying to solve here, and maybe work together a little bit.
I know I had a conversation with them about 9 months ago. And one of the things that they said that I thought was important is they said they made a lot of decisions when they purchased fabrication and started to move it into Revit. And if you remember, like fab parts didn't work in Revit very well in the beginning, and then they slowly got better and better and better. And you know, if I had been at that meeting, Chris, I would have been like, hey, can I have Unistrut back? Can you give me Unistrut? I just need Unistrut and like some angle iron. Can I have some angle iron? You know, but like I think that those
contention there,
yeah. Well,
we had similar conversations on the PCF side of things because we do a lot of industrial work, and it was interesting. Like I'm only thinking from building a paper machine and all this stuff in Plant 3D that doesn't jive in this whole other workflow that we've developed. Like, how do we not have to redraw the world? And there's similar people, due to conversations I had there, like they're doing that with boats in Toronto. And like, there's a need for even outside of sometimes, I mean, us as a mechanical might not be as big as a guy making $100 billion movie, but like, we're all still doing our jobs, and it's
right.
How are the products going to support that?
Yeah, they're just so much closer now. I think they made a lot of decisions back then. I'm glad that they're listening more. You know, it's weird. You guys were talking about that electrical product coming back, the one on Stratus. If you hack that to pieces, Chris, it is a PNID to Revit program and back and forth. Like I someday when I have infinite time, which will never happen. I would love to spend like 2 weeks trying to hack that electrical program into something that we could read PNIDs through into Revit, or at least track them in there, because the functionalities there is just a lot of details that don't exist yet. You know what I mean? So did you share any personal hacks with anybody or hear any good hacks on the product? Because when I saw McCusker Gill using containers to do their entire inventory, I was like, holy, well, that was
pretty
crazy.
Cool.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Did you see any of those?
So
Travis?
Personal on my side, and I said this, nothing at all to do with my conversation or my presentation, and I've said it to a few people now. But on a same side initiative on this construction technology thing is obviously knowing all this AI stuff is around us, right? Like, where is it truly valuable? Is it Terminator coming to destroy us? Is it like
yes?
So
I mean, no,
we're happy to have the Terminator.
I love my.
We're good with the
overlords.
Terminator. We like them. They're attractive to us. But go on.
I've spent a good amount of time. I spent a good amount of time telling people, like, just like, instead of coming up to me and saying, Chris, how do I do this? Like, you can Google it. You can use Bard. You can use ChatGPT. You can use Claude, and get closer than you used to get with just Google. Yeah. And I think like, it's, to me, this story is kind of fun just because it was like, I was working with another person at our shop, changing some ZPL code. One of our printers was a 300 DPI. One was a 203. So it was basically wanted the same label, just wanted it smaller. And anybody that uses Stratus that's played with ZPL code, like, maybe you're smarter than me, but it's like 203 in label area, hit redraw, 204, and you're trying to center it. Like, I just had this like epiphany, like, let's throw it into Claude and see what happens. And one of the girls I work with, she's takes a lot of pride in this awesome label that it's perfectly centered, like, it looks great. I think Curtis Watson gave her props on it. So like, she's super happy about it. I'm like, she's like, I'll just clean it up later. And I'm like, I just want to print it while we're here. We're doing this thing. Threw it in Claude, and like, it needed some cleanup, but literally it probably would have been like 3-4 hours of moving numbers around, and dump it in there, spit out, it resized it, and it was like done. And like, she looked at me, she's like, this is because I'm like, this is gonna blow your mind. It's gonna work. I know it's gonna work. And I dump it in, and it works. And she looks at me and like, wasn't excited at all. She was just like, this is stupid. This is gonna make people dumb. So for me personally, like, that was like one of my sharing of, and maybe not everybody's lived in this world of caring about making a label with ZPL code, but that's like, that was just a quick time saver. Like, I feel like I need to tell everyone about.
That's why you're a construction dork.
But she just made the point that against you for Terminator, it's not Terminator, it's Wally. That is where we're headed. We are headed for boneless, big drinks that we drink our lunches and our breakfasts and everything out of. And after you hear that, just walk around a major city and think for a second while you're looking around. I think it's Wall-E, not Terminator.
Yeah, I agree, but I think Idiocracy might have hit it a little close.
I was going to say,
right.
It is unfortunate that Idiocracy was a comedy when it was released, and now it feels like a reality.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Kind of a documentary.
A future mentoring.
Hopefully
I have
not.
to say, I was designing the interface for the ducks on field orders, and I was thinking about that lady in the medical center, like looking for the guy sneezing or the guy with the broken leg. They had like a little push button with all the pictures for the person entering the hospital. I'm like, crap.
Yep.
But I do think it works the other way around, right? Because I would say that the number one use I have for any of the AIs is to teach me. Like I'm like, I don't really understand this. Teach me. I don't really understand this. Teach me. I mean, I don't even trust what it says, but I trust that it gives me enough information that I can learn from it. So I hope it doesn't go that way. But right now, man, I've learned a lot from it.
I was listening to a podcast recently where they're talking about, replacing jobs or whatever. And what the way that they phrase, and I'll butcher it a little bit, but it's like for creative types, for writers, say, it's just going to replace mediocre writers. Like if you can't out-create an AI, then sorry, maybe you should be doing something a little bit different. But for people like myself, like you do have to get kind of creative in writing your prompts, but it's just a starting point. It teaches you, it gives you a jumping off point. For now, I mean, it potentially could get better, but I don't know if it'll ever truly write the next great American novel or anything like that.
It's still writing derivative work, right? Like it's not really thinking,
Yeah.
and that's the part that like
autocomplete.
It's that's the part that a lot of people are taking exception which I think is great. But I go back to I listened to an Adam Grant podcast on it with a couple of folks that are doing the research, and the real cool part is the capability of really inventive new writers to put out more faster and do things like we've never seen. Like choose your own adventures were cool when we were kids, right? And I'm aging myself, I'm sure, on the choose your own adventure side of things. So like before the YouTube thingy, and you could choose your own adventure, and you had a book, and you had to flip to X page, and that was the ending, and then you could go back and choose another one. And I even think I saw this. Bear Grylls has a video through Netflix where you can do this. Yeah. And like, does he eat the bug or does he do this? Mm-hmm. And it shows what happens. But the whole premise was you'll actually be able to write self-ending stories where you can write not an infinite number of endings, but a multiple number of endings that will allow an interaction with the person experiencing it to go different ways. And that would be, that part's really cool. So there's hope for this. And by the way, I had no idea before this conference this week, but you know how much prompt writers are making now?
No.
Oh man, wow. If you're listening in, I hate to lose you in construction tech, but if you're a great prompt writer, just go start searching for prompt writers, AI prompt writers, and the salaries, it's nuts.
Well, I just started a new job.
I think they just give you a house and like a plaid Tesla.
Yeah, a house, plaid Tesla, and a share of a jet.
But no way to charge it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was digging into the writing side because my wife does some of that, and what I thought was really cool is, I don't know if anybody out there writes, but if you write and towards the end of the novel, you have to make a change. You have to search back through your novel to see all the things that it affects. So like you've written this character and they do something at the end that's out of C. So a lot of the writers are using it just as a really good search engine. Like, hey, I need this person to change from right-handed to left-handed. Give me every point in my book where this is mentioned or relevant. And so I think we're going to see like a more cohesive story come out of this, with the way that it allows them to interact with the work that they're doing. And I really hope that's the way with construction. Like, I know when I start laying stuff out and I want to go back I get to the end of the corridor and I'm now on the right instead of the left. I just want a button that moves all of the crap that I just put in that assembly to the other side, because to do it by hand is going to be a pain in the ass. I don't need you to route it. I just need you to flip it so I don't have to waste 80 elbows going over the other side. You know what I mean? So I really hope that we get that context of building, and it can at least tell us, hey, here's where the places that you just messed up because you wanted to have the hot water on the left instead of the right. I think that'd be awesome.
I think that would be awesome,
dude. That's a killer use case, though. Like, and Chris, I think you said this a minute ago that you named off a couple of them. There's not even one anymore, right? It's like we all saw OpenAI's ChatGPT, and like, but you can't be stuck on it. I was sitting over a guy's shoulder at AGCIT again, and he kind of doing a back and forth with one of our speakers. Hugh Seaton did a talk on just kind of what you need to know about AI, and it was cool because he gave me. We didn't have a lot of time for the question. I asked what's your question going to be? See if we can if we should ask it or not. And I was like, I have to ask it, because I have to let you ask it, because he was showing how each one has a different use case for him. He said, if it's 2 years ago, I use OpenAI's ChatGPT to do this. If it's the last 2 years and I need information, I use Bard. Sometimes I'll get it from Bard and put it into ChatGPT to then get what I want. And I was like, you're cross prompting the AI.
Yeah.
You never cross streams.
Well, that's what I thank you, Trent, because that's what I said. Never cross the streams.
But you do get different results. I mean, based on how they were taught, what language they're using. And Claude, I feel like, me personally, I feel like I've had more current. I think they're just, their database is more current than, I don't have the paid GTP 4 or 5, but it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's here, it's now. I don't think any of us really know for sure how far or what's going to happen. I know there's lawsuits and stuff, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I think it makes sense. All the data that we use in this industry, like using it not to replace anybody, but to help with that, digest it, right? Like, I mean, being able to throw a spec book in and just say, where is this? Instead of spending 4 hours paging through it. That is insane.
Yeah. And that's, Jonathan, you're hot water pipe on the left versus the right, those are the kinds of things we can train it on. Contractually and legally, like a lot of the things that we're signing as contracts in the business are not going to allow you to use a lot of that information and train, because you don't really own the source of it, and you're probably infringing. So unfortunately, unless we can get the AI lawyers running quick, it's gonna be a lot of money spent contractually on figuring out what we can and can't use.
Aren't some of them letting you take like a snapshot in time of what it's learned at that point, and then like cordoning it off, and then you just feed it your own data information in there?
So that's the key, Travis. It's true, they do that, but the data that you're feeding it, do you truly contractually own it for that? Because if you look in your contracts and the language, you actually don't in a lot of cases, because it goes all the way back to the architects and the AIA around, they actually own that. And that's where we're going to have to break out and start to understand, like, this is general productization, to go all the way back to that we need to learn from, and we need these AIs we need to use this, versus it's stealing. And I'll bring up Brett Young. I mean, years ago, Brett Young was trying to do a thing where it would go through all your old plans and kind of, give you your architectural DNA thing. And I go back to thinking about that as, that's great, but that was one architect or one group that owned that. You're talking about a mechanical, a sheet metal, a plumber, electrical working on somebody. This gets crazy.
I'm just picturing I'm going off like what John was talking about here. I'm just picturing like the present being what the building will be when it's done, or I guess like the present being what you've modeled, and then like the past being what's going into the model. So I'm just imagining like pulling new submittals or like different specs and change. And then like, I'm picturing some of the stuff that you've already modeled. And when you put the new submittals in there, they start like pixelating out like Back to the Future. They're like, oh no, sorry. that one's not going to be there anymore. It's so crazy.
They do find and replace really good, man. So, I mean, they should be able to do find and replace. We got totally off the subject. We like so fast. We went.
All right. So innovate. We can go back.
So like,
This innovate thing that we had you on about.
Do any of you people have a segue capability whatsoever? We've been doing this for 70 shows and you still can't segue. You just yank the Band-Aid off, huh? That's where we're at, eh?
You do.
I think we could say like AI and databases, like Dado, similarity is there. And then we could say Jake Olson is now the CEO of Stratus.
Whoa.
Good job.
Hey, Chris, you want a job, man?
There's a segue.
That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
That was nicely
That
done.
was a pretty good segue. I wonder if you got to wonder if Jake's going to bring a little bit of that understanding and that of when they were building Dado, they were building it with a lot of AWS backend and a lot of those services. Add some of those services to something like Stratus, where it can look at some of that stuff. That'll be interesting. So what did you think of the announcement, Chris?
I always enjoyed any presentation he's done, any conversation I've had with him. Highly respect the guy. So I think I was slightly disappointed when he went to a contractor because I thought I'd lose out on getting to hear exactly what he was doing. So I'm kind of happy that he's now back in the realm of supporting us as contractors. So yeah, I think it was a good announcement. I'm happy to see what happens and where he takes it.
You did create a meme that I had to think a lot about because they may have to worry about his expense report a little bit. There's going to be a lot of Coors Light being bought.
They might as well just get stock in it, and they do it in Colorado, so I heard you get it cheaper there.
I guess
right here in Colorado, that's where it's born and bred, baby. So maybe that's why he picked it too. Colorado base. There you go.
They can just ship
cheap
them
Coors Light.
Maybe they pay him in Coors Light.
It's freshest. It's the freshest that way. I think, but see, Chris, this is where I think his year, and I'm with you. His year in contracting, though, in knowing him, really kind of relit the fuel.
Yeah.
And I think it's something a lot of founders and CEOs and people running technology organizations don't actually feel the pain. And he went back and really felt the pain for a particular period of time that I think is going to really bring a ton to Stratus. Not that the former leadership didn't have that, but it's so fresh, right? Yep. Coming right out. And Binsky's not, let's be honest, like this, Binsky's not going to your regular contractor, right? This is a very forward thinking, very, I'd say bleeding edge in a lot of cases. Yep. Bob's not afraid to get out on that bleeding edge, which gave Jake an opportunity to see some of that. So I'm interested. Did any of that come out, Chris, while he was there and talking about the announcements, et cetera, that shows you some of that contractor coming back to tech for us?
I think in general, just the high level conversations, yes, but I don't think anything deliberate yet. I think at least from the conversations I was in and the conversations I've heard him talking, I think I'm excited to hear where he's going to go and what he's going to do with it. I think Trent as well, excited. I think, I don't know. I don't know anything deliberate, but I think.
Did Chris just segue a second time? I think he did. Wait. We got this.
Yeah.
And Trent, so you got a little news for us?
I don't think it's any mystery to most of the people that we converse with and are a part of. But yeah, I am part of the team, the new additions at the GTP team with Jake. So a couple new people coming into some leadership roles there, and really looking to take a really, really great piece of software even further. Right. I mean, I think the big thing Jake wanted to point out through it all is like, it's what GTP has done is amazing. That team has really put together a rock solid product, and the conference, we're sitting here talking about this conference again. What they've done as a group is amazing. So it's like a humbling experience to be thought of as like some new blood, like people are really excited about this new blood and I appreciate the confidence that people have in Jake Olson and myself. You'll take those compliments when you get them, but it's like to have that level of excitement around coming into an already great team is kind of cool, because it's not like you're coming into something that didn't kick ass. You feel privileged to even to be considered to be a part of something like that. So it's really cool. But yeah, a lot of the talks at the conference were around even Jake at Binsky, like some of the validation that he had over a lot of this stuff. Jake got a lot of validation at Binsky of what GTP and Stratus is doing. Yeah. He saw it firsthand. And I think in his mind, he was like, this is a good product. This is really, really, really a good product. This is a really, really, really good group of contractors. That's a big one. The contractors that are a part of the product. And yeah, that's what got everyone excited.
Chris, when he moved to Binsky, like the first couple months, I get texts like, John, did you know it does this? I'm like, yeah, no, it does. No, it does this. I'm like, yep, no, it does that. No, it does. And I think that's probably why I ended up there, right? Like he's been one to look at the opportunities in front of him. I don't know if you know his background, but he starts out with embeds as a structural engineer a million years ago, and then has kind of moved through his career by seeing opportunities that are solid and moving to them, and being able to carry them through. I mean, I can't think of a lot of things that Jake was involved with that I would call a fail, especially when he's in leadership. So I'm really excited. I spent a lot of my years over the last couple on field orders and working with that Stratus team, and this last year has been the most interesting. There's been huge changes there in terms of development and all these other things, and some of the products are finally hitting that level of maturity where you really do need, you need a CEO who is used to that market, and you need to have a better CSG. You need to have this and that goes with scaling. And I'm excited to see what they all do.
It's funny that
it's going to be an interesting time.
The text that you were getting from Jake, because I would get the ones that are like, why the hell you guys do this shit? Like this, what the hell, man? Why does anybody do contracting?
Yeah.
Not those two.
We were just glassing over that.
Right.
If you want to plug to another podcast, if you guys want to learn more about kind of Jake from the culture side of things too, which I think is always great, is go listen to Todd Wyant's show with Bridging the Gap with Jake. And they had this whole plan and it just went completely off the rails. And they talked about, leadership and personality types and all of that. So it was an interesting one. And I think Trent, what's cool to see from you, man, is, all that time at North and, doing it a particular way, watching you watch others and grow. Now you get a chance to kind of take that into the software realm. And, it's a cool opportunity to see you bring the skills of, and probably some of the pains, right? Like, let's be honest, like being
of course.
a contractor, there's a lot of pain. There's nothing you can do. Bringing those pains to a team that now you get to spread that out across probably doing some consulting ish type roles with them, but also then injecting it into the software is where, we've always talked about digitizing the knowledge that people like that have. So it'll be cool to see you jump over.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And John knows this because John Marsh here is really good at this too. But when you're consulting and when you're helping people, there's a knack that you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're working with. And a lot of people miss that. I think that's a really big trait. And it doesn't mean that you've had to live their life. It helps if you did. So I think that there's a level of leadership there that I want to bring to an already great team. The team has skills that I don't have, and they do a great job. But to bring that know-how, I mean, when you're working with somebody, just put yourself in their shoes. That empathetic way of dealing with someone goes a really long way. There's a lot of things.
Well, that's what's cool. And to bring it back to Chris, because, what's cool about this, and we've talked about it over and over, is codifying what you know and what you've experienced, Trent, and then when you're getting from others, then that's why the software becomes powerful to Chris. Because Chris, if it's codified and you come across it, now instead of beating your head against the wall for the next thing, it's now in the software. It's now there for you to not just take advantage of, but learn from.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to make their journey as painless as possible, right? So none of this is sans pain. I mean, you're going to you're going to get hurt, but
no one in here said pain-free ever.
Yeah.
It's just so we're clear. It's
intentional alleviation and intentional like deterrence and a little like foreshadowing to avoid certain things is key. So and that actually segue is a really good reason to go to the things like Innovate, these conferences that are very focused on these products, because those individuals at those conferences are giving you just that. It's like the real, like I said, I like to put myself in the shoes of the people I'm dealing with in consulting or when you're helping anyone. At that conference, everyone's wearing the same shoes. I mean, most of the people there, like, it's a very targeted conference. So that's the one thing that I would say on that. And I know, wrapping that up just a bit, Chris, just in anything though, and especially since there is a little bit of GTP representation in the room here too. But so even the selfish want to know for myself, but there's other people that want to know, what suggestions would you have for the team on the, we've talked a lot about the goods of the conference, how it's relevant and you can learn a lot and the people are there, but was there a couple things that maybe suggestions that you thought could have been a little better?
I think I did do the survey like today that came out. I think from what's changed from the first one to the second one to me has been just a bigger gap of now when you're singly focused on a product, right? You have like people that are way out front doing it, and you have people that are just starting it, and trying to figure out that gap. Maybe a couple of shorter, just one hitter sessions of specific topics. I mean, and I think everybody's got their own thing that they focus on or their own thing that they struggle with. Like I can talk to I'm blue in the face about labels, and that seems like the lowest hanging fruit of anything. Of like, no, it's a sticker, stick it on something, right? But like the amount of time that I've messed with, like we do all SSO and single sign on, and we have our workstations on our digital in our shop like completely locked down. So like print drivers, like we want to talk about getting into the weeds about like polyester versus polypropylene versus direct thermal versus thermal transfer. Like most people don't care about that, but if you can find someone that learned it and you don't have to relearn those things, like kind of just like short one hitters, like, you want to talk labels? Let's talk labels for 20 minutes. Or let's talk this for 20 minutes. Let's talk containers at a high level. We haven't rolled it out, or containers 2.0. Because that's how my implementation has gone with that product. Is I unlike DSI, who just kind of locked down the door, at least how I've been explained, like figure it all out and then roll it all out at once. Like I've been taking a very staggered, like I hit VDC, then I hit the shop sheet metal, I hit piping, and it's been going good for us in that fashion. But then Stratus 2.0, 3.0 for VDC comes along, and it's like, now I'm kind of in this stage where like it is growing on its own, but I think everybody's at different levels and how far they take it. And that's one thing that's hard with Stratus is like have you heard a good definition for it yet? Like I have a folder called third party help, and that's my Stratus stuff. Like, cause right. Like, I mean, it can touch estimating and it touches the field install. Like it's so a suggestion on how to make it better. I think the conferences ran awesome. I think the after hours stuff was fun. I think the classes were good, but I would say like trying to divvy up and just break up where you're at in your implementation or decision making, and kind of maybe a few more smaller and probably just roundtable conversations. You need someone leading the conversation, but let's just talk about something because we're all passionate about what we do, or we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. No. Well said. I think that will be definitely considered for the next one. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that Chris, I think you got some football to go to here soon, but I wanted to maybe break away from Stratus talk a little bit. You had a post earlier this year on LinkedIn that was pretty cool, and you sent me a picture of something that you were working on that I'd like you to brag about too. So can you talk to me a little bit about laser pipe cutting?
Yeah. High level, it is really cool. We justify it slightly because we have a whole like custom equipment department that's building tons of really cool stuff. Segue into this construction side. Now, like we justify getting this laser cutter. It is new-ish. We've taken ownership of it a couple months ago, I believe. But yeah, I think one example, basically it's like our Watt. We have a Watts plasma. This is just laser, like 5-axis 3D. I think I've heard a couple different names for it, but it's quick, it's fast. Lasers are cool, and it's a super clean cut. Right now, like that's kind of front and center. I mean, like trying to figure out how I can piece together the construction piece of it, of just cutting pipe or cutting bevels, where we're first focused on shapes. Like, I mean, one example, I think it's just for what I can remember off the top of my head is like 4-inch by 2-inch 3/8 stainless steel tube. Cutting that on a marble saw is like 12 to 15 minutes a cut. Cutting on this thing is a minute.
Nice.
So like it's self-loading, self-unloading. Like it's pretty crazy. It's cool. I'm happy we have one and we get to play with it. Now I'm like trying to figure out like, let's sell this to the industry because this will help just cutting everything.
Right.
I'm now sitting here just like
We should,
as for consulting, we talk about how the cutting was already ahead of the downstream methodologies in most shops. So now it's even more catch up work. It's like cutting is now going to be faster. So now the idea of getting packages and assemblies and things labeled and sorted and all that downstream work, it just means you're going to have to be on your game because the speeds just keep going and going.
Less cleanup.
Less welds overall, man, because you can do some of that weird cuts. I think I was talking to your guy and I'm like, when I was cutting large bore pipe and putting small bore pipe on it and needed to be, it needed to be flat on bottom or flat on top. You can fish mouth flat on bottom and flat on top to a pipe and save like 4 or 5 welds versus a T and some eccentric reducers. So like those cutters are, and it's going to be a pain in the ass to make that cut right for you.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
At the end of the day, it is G code, so it should feel somewhat familiar. But yes. Trying to figure out how to automate it is definitely on the list.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Let's make it faster yet.
So it's right. Why is it the laser running? Because I cut all this shit already. What else do I do?
Yes. The laser runs for 5 minutes of the day and everybody else just does work after that.
Haven't I heard that before? Wouldn't we even hear that with the Tiger Stop? Yeah,
it's already happening. Yeah.
Why do we have this thing? It's never on. It's like, well, because it only needs to run for a short period of time.
Because our downstream processes haven't caught up with the. Yeah, I mean,
I think we need a little downstream process, a little small batch, a little planning here. Maybe we can get this thing moving faster.
A perfect package, if you will.
There you go.
There you go. Well, we are wrapping it up because my man Chris has got to get to football. You're doing what are you on tonight? You're on concessions tonight, right?
I have to work concessions, yes. High school football, varsity game. First home game. Lots of sodas and popcorn to sell, I guess.
Friday night lights, baby. It's Friday night lights time. That's big there, man. That's big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, man, thank you so much for stopping in. I know we definitely went way off the Stratus Innovate, but we kind of knew we'd do that. I hope you had a good time. It was great to have you on. Sunglasses and all. I love it. I love it. And hey, hopefully that whiskey got you a little primed up for this one.
Yeah, I think we're good. I'm glad you got to experience some of our Midwest summer fall heat.
Please don't remind me. Yeah. I walked out of the hotel humidity. I thought I was swimming. I'm like, did I just swim here? Wait, what is going? There was wind, but it normally it didn't feel good. It did not.
It's been quite miserable. Yeah,
blowing hot air on you. That's all it's doing.
Yeah, warm hot air. It was not nice, but it was great to be there. And I do love Chicago, man. I was there on Monday, and it was beautiful on Monday.
It's a gorgeous city.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Oh, man. Well, hey, listen, connect with Chris, connect with everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in. This has been episode 70, Stratus Innovate Recap.